Thursday's Thoughts with Taylor. Now, this is our first episode, so at the end of the day, what we are going to be talking about is our weekly updates and opinions from me and my guest for Cleety G. And then beyond that, I'd like to hear from you guys in the chat whenever you guys have questions or comments. I hope to be one of, if not your favorite voice in the future with Cleety G. So, as I said, what this show will be about is weekly updates and opinions every Thursday, lasting a minimum of 45 minutes. It'll start at 12 in the afternoon. Now, who I am Taylor Jones, and I am personal friends with the Cleety G founders Slayer and Davies, as well as personal friends with the franchise owner Holt, who is the owner of the Lords, as well as a brother and friend to the player the owner Sky Decay, owner of Danger Knots. Little backstory: I used to actually help him operate Danger Knots, so I actually have some experience when it comes to the inner workings of a franchise, with Cleety G, that is. But since I've also been personal friends, I've actually been here since day one, whether I'm contributing or not. I got to hear how the leagues developed, from anything from our dropping of Smite to our picking up of Rocket League, and then other potential games that we are looking at in the future. Free-to-play games and games like that are definitely something we like to look at. But beyond that, some content to expect in the future. I'd like to be bringing in any players that are interested in interviews, franchise owners. Eventually, I'd like to be bringing people outside of Cleety G in for my interviews. Really anything relevant to today, to Rocket League maybe, or any other games, or Cleety G in general. Now, beyond that, we're going to be going over draft stock for certain players at one point when we get closer to the next season, since we're going into post-season at the moment. And beyond that, today's topics are going to be post-season in U, last night's prospect match. Today we're also going to interview the franchise owner of the Lords. And then as well, we are going to be discussing how many teams are currently in the league, how many new teams are coming in, and how many teams are going to have next season, and that may surprise you guys. Beyond that, I'm going to finish off with my top 5 prospects and players, but that's at the very end. So, right now is post-season and U. So, post-season and U. Now, I was talking to an inside source at Cleety G, and I was asking said inside source what you could be looking for as a franchise owner or a captain when it comes to post-season. You're going to want to find players that have built up good chemistry. Beyond that, you're going to want to find players who ultimately have developed throughout the season. Now, the very end, when it comes to postseason, people aren't really paying attention to the prospect games per se, unless we have any franchise owners or captains that are, I guess, 1 or 2 steps ahead of the curve. Now, if you ask me, that's what I would be looking for. You want to look at who's winning, who you're playing. You want to look at availability. And as I said, you want to look to find who has chemistry from the regular season. Because some of these teams, they come in and it's entirely new prospects, while some of the teams, it's like a friend group that has been playing or knew each other outside of the game. It's all really interesting to see how everything plays out. But postseason in U is definitely something everyone wants to think about, whether you are a franchise owner, a team owner, or even just something like a player or a prospect. Being a prospect, not being on a team, how does postseason apply to you? This is your time to see where you want to go, what players you might want to contact outside of the league or outside of the games. Um, if you're a new player, I know there's plenty of people out there that want to teach people how to play Rocket League. It's definitely a very good community. Me personally, I've only been playing a few games of Rocket League, and I'm already getting up to a point where I'm learning the ball control, stuff like that. It's an interesting game because it has its own mechanics. Uh, some people might compare it to FIFA just because the fact that it has a soccer ball. I guess it's a soccer ball involved, but I would say it's a whole game entirely on its own. I've watched some definitely interesting clips of people between the highest mastery of the game to green players, and I've seen them run obstacle courses. I've seen them fly. I've seen them feather the ball. It's a very interesting game. There's a lot of mechanics with very few mechanics at the same time, and I really like it. But moving on from post-season and you. Last night's prospect match. So, Wednesdays are definitely the night to play if you want to be on Thursday's thoughts, because I'll be watching that game. And last night's prospects are going to be talked about, which definitely helps you raise your draft stock. It helps you get your name out there. You could go from an unwanted player to a wanted player, all in the matter of one night of playing. So last night's game, on the blue team, we had Mello, Hello Beefy Taco, and Crane Man. And on the orange team, we had Lord, no relation to the Lords. We had Green Gujaku, and we had I Do the Drew. So, through watching last night's game, I gotta say, Lord was the MVP. No matter how many times Lord got MVP or didn't get MVP, whether Lord was on the winning team or on the losing team, Lord was the MVP. Now, that's just what I have to say. That was from watching the skill on the field and in comparison. But what I do have to say in contrast is the Lord definitely played against his team. Now, it was just a prospect game, so I don't know if they were in a party or not, or how or where the communication was, if there was any communication. But at the end of the day, you want to work with your team as opposed against your team. There are times where I could see shots that could have been made if Lord was not on the ball, maybe playing a different position on the field. But what I gotta give Orange team is they definitely love their defense was there. Their defense was there the whole game, whether they were working together or not. Anytime Blue team brought that ball near the net, I saw Orange team, all three of them there, defending that net. Now, Green Gujaku, me and Slayer were talking about Green Gujaku in the middle of the stream last night. I had the joy of being a co-caster for the stream last night. Some of y'all might have been able to hear me whispering in the background. But Green Gujaku, we were saying mid-game, we wanted Green Gujaku to come through, maybe make some more shots, do a little bit more for their team. And it was almost like Green Gujaku was listening to the stream, because Green Gujaku really came through late game. I saw Green Gujaku touching the ball. Saw Green Gujaku make some shots, make some defensive positional plays, etc. Definitely a good supportive player, a number 2, maybe even a number 1 once polished. Depends how you look at your team. Maybe you don't even have 1, 2, and 3. Maybe you just have all number 1. It's however you run it. But I Do the Drew, as well, being on Orange team, definitely had some real good ball control. And what was awesome is, since I got the chance to be here to stream yesterday and help cast, narrate, however you want to explain it, I was also here for the post-game Q&A. We had a Q&A up in our Discord, open all players, franchise owners, prospects, what have you, anybody in the Discord. And I Do the Drew ended up showing up to this post-game Q&A. and I got to listen to I Do the Drew talk. I talked to I Do the Drew a little bit. We'll just call him Drew for a second. Um, definitely has a great attitude. I don't know how long Drew has been playing Rocket League. I don't know per se if there are other games that you could play to get, I guess, skill in, similar to Rocket League. But at the end of the day, Drew definitely has great attitude, some nifty ball control for a prospect game. Definitely had some questions for the franchise owner himself, which is something I like to see. I don't like passengers. So if you're gonna show up and you're just here to play the game, that's on you. But if you're gonna show up and you actually want to see what's happening in the community that you just joined, that's the best thing I could ask for. That makes you part of the community. So I Do the Drew definitely got points for me. Orange team in general, definitely wild. You know, with the Lord being the MVP of the whole game, Green Gujaku really coming through late game, which is important if you ask me. Better late than never, you know. And then I Do the Drew with the awesome attitude and nifty ball control. Now on the opposite team, blue team, Mello. If Lord wasn't in this game, Mello was going to get that MVP. And Mello was making a hell of a lot of shots. Definitely real nice watching Mello. But as I said on the stream last night, if you are the MVP of the opposing team, that's going to get you a lot of eyes, whether you deserve it or not. So we'll see with the coming season on how Mello is, on how Mello's attitude is, because I didn't get a chance to hear Mello talk, communicate, or come to the Q&A, what have you. But at the end of the day, I saw Mello on that ball throughout the game, and definitely had some good defense. Now, Hella Beefy Taco, we were watching him. Definitely, they definitely came in and out. There are times where it was like where they were there, and then there are times where they're definitely making some clean shots. I got to see Hella Beefy Taco really put out throughout the whole game. Now, I don't know if this was Hella Beefy Taco's A game or if it was their C game, but I'll tell you this, it definitely impressed me for a prospect game. Now, Crane Man, and that is not their specific gamer tag. It is TTV Crane Man, I assume. Crane Man had some amazing ball control and car control. It definitely, for a prospect game, let me correct myself. I've seen plenty of our match games, our season games. I got to see some really wild players, and then as I said, I've seen people outside of Cleety G doing some pretty interesting things. But when I got to watch these prospect games, it's a real treat because I get to see new players, or at least new players to the league and what they're bringing to the league. So Crane Man, definitely someone that would be good to pick up and develop between watching Crane Man handle their car and handle the ball. Definitely a good 3, definitely a good support player, someone that you could want on your team or would want on your team. Now that was last night's prospects. Beyond that, what we're going to be going over is the... One moment, I apologize. Now after that, what we want to do is we have our franchise owner, Mr. Holt. Are you there right now at the moment, sir?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
For those of you
Your
who
audio
actually
is
don't know
included,
me,
correct?
I am. Yes, it is.
Awesome.
I am the owner of the Lords right now. My captain is Die Epic, and we're in pretty good shape in the season right now. It's my, I guess it's my first season in Rocket League. It's not my first season with Cleety G per se, so it's been a fun ride so far.
Oh yeah. What was your first season then? Was it with our Smite back when we had Smite?
Yes, it was with Smite.
Oh. How did you feel about that? Did you enjoy being a franchise owner for the Smite when we had Smite on our Cleety G
Um, it definitely had its ups and downs as far as the Smite League goes. Let's just say I'm glad we're in Rocket League. The community is so much brighter. Everyone is
Yeah.
nicer. Just there's a lot less stains in Rocket League than
Hmm.
there seem to be in Smite.
I can agree with that. Now, I had a few questions for you.
Uh huh.
Right now, and I'm sure you just said it. Who would you say is your top player on your team, or do you have a top player? How does your team operate?
Uh, that was a lot of questions. So, my top player, I guess technically you could say, is Audacity, since he was the finalist on our team to be voted in to the
Hmm.
MVP
Hmm.
running. But in my opinion, I don't really think there's a top player per se. I think
That's
you could
always
say
good to
that
hear.
there's top players in each game. It just
Uh
depends on
huh.
who shows out each game, but I think the attitude, the drive, and the just all around teamwork I see from my entire team is definitely something to where I would say all of them are my top players. I try to hold them to a golden standard, as does Epic, and that is something we are striving for, is excellence within the league. I want to be a franchise in this league to last, and hopefully we'll make something happen with it in the playoffs, but we'll see.
Now that's what I'd like to hear. Uh, Now, I'm under the understanding that every franchise has mottos that they like to hold. Now, what is your motto? Is it not "Hungry dogs run faster"? Correct?
I am so sorry. I had some technical difficulties. Could you repeat that question, please?
That's fine. What is your franchise motto?
My franchise motto per se is
Hmm.
something we like to keep in house. I'm not going to be one to really spout off this mumbo jumbo in here. I'm not here to
Of course, of course. I
really
apologize.
get into that conversation, but
Uh huh.
play us and find out.
All right, all right. Now, your Rocket League team, and potentially you could say your franchise as a whole, is a kind of a ground up kind of operation. You know, that lots of moving parts, some new, some already existing to Rocket League, but not entirely a lot of rapport between all of you guys at the beginning of it. So, do you have any tips or any comments on how it was to go from, I guess you could say, a rookie franchise to being arguably one of the top best franchises or teams, however you look at it, in the league right now?
Um, it's not for everyone.
Hmm.
It's definitely not.
Being a
It
franchise owner?
takes being a franchise owner. Yeah, you really
Uh
need
huh.
to have a way with people, or at least understand how people operate, and be good
Hmm.
with them. You know, you're meeting a lot of new and possibly volatile
Hmm.
personalities every single day, and you need to be able to map that out very well and be able to handle it accordingly and have that maturity to understand what and what not to say.
Hmm.
So for people trying to become franchise owners, I would say take that into consideration. Now,
Hmm.
your experience may be different than everyone else's, but that's something that I can say is pretty universal as far as it goes, and you just really need to have a winning mindset and keep your opportunities and ideas open to change. You
I
know,
like
this
that
this
answer.
league is going to be coming to change. This next season is what I've heard, so it'll be interesting.
So, obviously, you're a franchise owner, so you're one step above, I guess you could say, a team owner. But do you have any advice for any green teams, any rookie teams coming into this season?
Draft smart and don't be afraid to put your ideas and your values ahead of someone's ego.
Yeah. All right. Definitely an interesting answer from our franchise owner, the Lord. Not a good or a bad answer, but definitely the kind of answer I want. And now, do you, in your personal opinion, are there any potential sleeper players that we have currently in the league? whether they're on your team or a different team? Anybody that anybody is sleeping on at the moment?
I'm gonna shout out my man Fluffy here. I know his
Oh yeah.
shot percentage is down, but he is working towards being one of the best players in this league, and I think he has the potential to really do that. He's probably one of my favorite players that I've ever interacted with so far.
Now, why is that?
He's got a great outlook on everything. He's got a winning mentality. He gets along with everyone. He's just sort of go with the flow kind of guy. And I've just never really seen him have a negative day.
That's what
like everyone's had bad days, but he always keeps a positive outlook. So that's definitely one of my favorites. Another one would definitely be Liquid. Pretty much my entire team, to be honest.
No, that's all you can ask for, especially interviewing a franchise owner. Hopefully they're going to talk up their team. Now, let's see. Did you... Give me one moment. I apologize.
No, you're fine. Take your time.
Did you get a chance to see last night's prospect game?
No, I did not.
Are there any new prospects that you've heard anything about? Anybody that you may be looking at, if you want to share that with us? Or at least anybody who has some really high draft stock. Since we are going into the postseason.
I'd like to keep that one pretty close to the chest.
Alright. I like that. Cool, alright. So, now, your personal opinion, operating a franchise, what would you say is something to look out for? A red flag.
Saying too much.
Saying too much. As a player saying too much?
No, just always... Everyone has an agenda.
Yes.
Whether they like to say it or not. And you can play your cards like a poker game. You could play your cards, just know when to play them.
Oh yeah? Know when to hold them, know when to fold them. Alright, I see.
Pretty much.
That's cool. So I have a list of top 5, as well as top 5 players, as well as a list of top 5 prospects. I was wondering, do you have, in your opinion, top 5 players currently in the league? I guess people that you think maybe are too good for some teams, or just really like to show out in the game. I know I did just ask you about sleepers, but I guess being on a top 5 list, you usually aren't a sleeper. You're actually usually the opposite. So do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, I have 5 players. I'm pretty sure I could name 5 players right now that I think are in the top 5. I don't really have an order for them. But they're like, I mean, you got to take into consideration Slim and Jotaro. Those two are the dynamic duo of the league. You've got Dirty, one of the top scorers. I'd put Kryptonite right up there as well. And to round out a 5th, I would have to say Durtho.
That's funny. It's funny. Your list. I like it.
His playing is... He's a great player. His availability's not there. Neither is the attitude. So that's just something I'll
just something you have to work around sometimes, you know? That's ironic that you named those guys, because that's actually my top 5 list as well. In order, I have Jotaro, I have Dirty, I have Durtho, I have Kryptonite, and I also have Slim Jim. So that is pretty funny. Now, as well as prospects on my top 5 prospect list, I have Unmellow, I have Lord, I have Crane Man, I have Impulse Panther, and I also have Arc 5s. Now,
okay.
Personally, watching that game last night, I was watching Lord. I don't know what your plans are for next season, but that'd be pretty nifty having a player on your team with your franchise name, you know? Wouldn't that be pretty funny?
I feel like I'd have to. It's a responsibility now to do my due diligence.
Yeah, yeah, he's definitely he definitely stood out. Uh, I have my notes right here. I don't know if you heard earlier, but Lord was the MVP of the whole game last night of the best of five. Any game that his team won, he was MVP, and basically any game played. If you ask me, he was the MVP. MVP runner-up would probably be Melo, but as I explained earlier, if you're leading points on the enemy team, you're definitely getting plenty of screen time, whether you deserve it or not. Nothing for or against Melo. I just would like to take a unbiased stance. But Lord definitely stood out last night. Now, any advice going into the postseason? How are you handling it over at your franchise over with the Lords?
We're taking it game by game, and we're gonna see how far we can go.
Mm-hmm. All right. Game by game. That's definitely one step at a time kind of mentality. It's a healthy mentality. I would say it's it's not a good idea to worry about what's to come. It's a good idea to be prepared. It's not a good idea to be worried. Now, in your personal opinion, would you say, because I've heard that your team has recently got you on to Rocket League, because I know I've seen a lot of these franchise owners, and they, being a franchise owner, in my personal opinion, is someone who enjoys the community and the game, but may not be considered a professional in their own opinion or other opinions. Competitive player, maybe not, but I heard that your team has been getting you in the game recently, which is something I like to hear, like to see. You know, a franchise owner that takes the time to build up rapport with their teammates, to learn from their teammates. Whether you're into the game or not, learning the mechanics by getting in there, you know, getting rubber meets the road. It's always a healthy thing for a franchise owner. What would you say? Has your team taught you anything? Whether it's in-game mechanics or just in-life mechanics, if you will.
Um, Shoot fast and don't miss.
All right, all right. That's nice. That's nice. Now, that is what we will conclude with the interview with Mr. Holt. I really appreciate having you on our show and being our first interviewee. And you definitely have
I
a
appreciate
good
you
head
guys
on your
taking me on
shoulders,
here.
sir. Definitely, definitely. Now, what I would like to move on to, everybody, is the current number of teams. I don't know if everybody knows this. Some people, this may be new information. Some people, they probably already know this. But currently, this season, we have 8 teams. But next season, we're going to have 10 teams. Now, interesting fact, we're going to have 4 new teams. So if you do the math, that means we will be losing 2 teams throughout this next season. Now, I do not know who, but if you ask me, through seeing the chat and paying attention to the games, there's definitely a lot going on. I know RGB, they're losing their captain Ronska, so that's definitely going to be interesting. That's going to play out interesting. I remember being there for Ronska's interview. Ronska definitely slam dunked that interview. I know before that there was their captain was before Ronska, their captain for RGB Nova. I apologize, everybody. RGB Nova was their previous captain, and I know there was a lot of drama circling around RGB Nova from when RGB Nova left the team, and then next season was brought back in with a with not a franchise owner, but a league owner, Mr. Slayer's personal recommendation, and ended up leaving. I think it was mid-game. They ended up leaving their chat and leaving the game. which is definitely some drama that Ronska didn't need to handle. But RGB Nova, from RGB Nova to Ronska, and I don't know who they're moving on to next season, but I've definitely heard some players names dropped. I know RGB definitely has a nice community surrounding them. I heard about some of the previous issues of potential players not being rotated as much, but they still had a very healthy game, a healthy season, and if they're able to retain what they got and add on to it, especially under new management, that's definitely some seeds for success, if you will. They're gonna grow into something real nice, or they already are something real nice, and they're one of the sleepers. But RGB for the franchise Danger Knots, I like what I'm seeing. Now I know, as I said, reading through the chat, I know there's been some drama, not only with the prospects, but almost prospect level drama from one or two of the franchises, which is definitely sad to see. I apologize. The teams, not the franchises, the teams. There's a specific. There are a handful of teams, not a specific. There are one or two teams that could be handling criticism better, or scheduling better. I'm not going to drop any names, but I know that's most likely what's going to happen post season. Is when we lose teams, it's going to be due to people butting heads. I gotta say, it's not a good idea to come into someone's house and tell them how to make their sandwich. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, we just have normal people running the league, running the franchise. Not everybody is as level-headed as Mr. Holt. He's definitely got a healthy opinion. I know I've heard how he operates. I've seen how he operates. It's not how everyone operates. So some teams, some franchises, when it comes to being a player, you can come in with an interesting attitude. Being a franchise owner or a captain of a team, it's your job to deal with it, but it's not your job to like it. And some players forget that, and they also forget that we have a draft at the end of every season. So, but it's definitely a shame when we have to see that kind of attitude from a captain or a franchise owner, because you should be holding yourself to a specific standard. Honestly, you shouldn't be fighting with people at your level or higher. That's what I have to say. Now, at the end of the day, if you're in the community and people like you, if you can get away with it, you can get away with it. Who am I to say what's right and what's wrong? But we want to keep this community healthy. And at the end of the day, I think that's a very good broad statement that everyone can agree with. And it's definitely not something you want to fight. But top 5 prospects and players. Like I said earlier, top 5 players are Joe Tardo, Dirty, Dirtho, Kryptonite, and Slim Jim. Beyond that, our prospects are Unmellow, Lord, Crane Man, Impulse Panther, and Arc 5s. So as I said, those are the top 5 on players to prospects. Now, I also have the Cleety G founder, Mr. Slayer, and I'm going to see if they have anything to say on the top 5 prospects. See what they maybe drop. We're going to do something fun where they can drop a quick sentence or word to describe the top 5 players, not the prospects, because they have yet to join the league. But officially, at least, I apologize. They are a part of the league. Being a prospect personally, if you ask me, being a prospect makes you a part of the league. But I'm going to hand the mic over to Mr. Slayer, and Mr. Slayer is going to have something to say about one of our 5 players.
Alright, guys. I know you guys are probably used to hearing my voice by now. It's actually daytime for me, so I probably sound a little bit more alive than in some of the casting I've been doing recently. I've been exhausted and dead. Going into the 5 prospects, though, that he has listed here, if I were to give some responses, word, sentence, a description, Jotaro, MVP candidate in his own right. I think realistically all 5 of these guys are MVP candidates. I really have to point out for Jotaro though, because he got the short end of the stick, similar to what happened with Chris Knight, where they both I think had stellar seasons, and both of them got eliminated because they had stronger competition. Unfortunately, Jotaro having to have his vote compete against Slim, and Chris Knight having his vote compete against Audacity. Both of them, though, I think big names. Jotaro, if he walks the walk, he talks the talk. That's my way to back up Jotaro. He's been really polite in most of my interactions with him so far. Hasn't caused many issues when people have run their mouth. He's not usually the first person to take the bait, but if he is involved, he backs up whatever he says. Dirty. Bit of a controversial captain. Controversial is probably the word I would use to describe him and everything that's happened surrounding him. Bit of a weak appearance, some weak management coming from him as far as this past 4 games have gone. It's been like back and forth whether or not he can make it. Ever since their loss to Full Senders, big controversy surrounds this team. That's the word I'd use for that. Then we have Dirtho on this list. I think Dirtho doesn't win a title this season. I think 1 season, even 2 seasons is too short of some time to throw that bust label out there. But you could definitely consider it. You could start looking at it if he doesn't bring home a title this season, and if he doesn't bring home a title next season. I don't know. 2 games on the series, or 2 games. 2 series on the season. My bad, guys. I really question whether or not the first overall pick or even a big payday should be coming his way. Then we're gonna move on to Chris Knight after that. I'm in love with the guy as far as everything that I've seen so far. He's young. He's top 5 scorer, only top 5 scorer with more assists than saves. One of his teammates also happens to be a top 5 scorer. He's had some great mentorship there. There were questions regarding maybe attitude issues, him getting traded from Valeris. None of that seems to be a factor when you're winning. He pulls in a finals ring if he decides to enter free agency. I think you're looking at one of the bigger free agent signings. If he doesn't, I think the Lords get a steal. They lock him up on a decent deal. It's honestly going to be a little hard to imagine them keeping all of their talent together. Maybe some people who decide to take some pay cuts to stay together, but a finals ring, I think, is really what needs to tie that bow if everybody wants to stay together. If not, team players might start looking at other teams. And we're going to finish off the list with Slim. Now, this is not in my order, per se, because in my opinion, Slim's the #1 player in the league. What he brings to a team in leadership, in coaching, in management, player development, drafting, overall just readiness. He's always prepared. Not always prepared, I take that back. But he's, for the most part, got his head on his shoulders. His team's aware. He's asking, about getting games scheduled whenever he can. He's one of the captains that you see rotating players a lot as well. That's really valuable, I know, to a lot of prospects, a lot of people who just want to play in general. Slim's about it. Slim wants to have fun, and he's got the skill level, too, to where anybody that goes there, you play with him, you learn from him, you have the right attitude, you're just going to get better. You're going to go there as a plat player, leave as a diamond. You're going to go there as a diamond, leave as a champ. He makes a lot of the players around him better. Great place to go if you're just trying to soak in some knowledge, maybe play a few games, ride the bench your first season until you actually get a feeling on how everything works. Slim's your guy. Slim's where I want to get. And I think that's going to be all we have to cover. We're about 5 minutes early. This is obviously first episode, so times will probably be adjusted a little bit. We might try to slim it down to like 35 minutes instead of 45. I'm not 100% sure. Not really my call, but it'll be discussed. It was a really good first episode that we've had. I'm going to hand the mic back over to Cracker in Your Soup, also known as Taylor Jones. He will close you guys out, and we should be back on this with Thursday.
All right, hey everybody. I agree. Definitely a great first show, and we're definitely gonna, as I always say, nothing's set in stone. So everything will develop throughout time. But just to go over real quick, as I went through on this episode, post-season in you, if you would like to go through our video, this would definitely be a good video to listen to if you're getting ready for postseason, what have you. Beyond that, I brought up the 8 teams going into 10 teams and 4 new teams. You do the math. And then beyond that, I got to review the prospect game for Wednesday night, and I got to go over my top 5 players and prospects. Now, as I explained, I'd like to see more people Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night, Wednesday morning, what have you. That's definitely the game that I personally will be looking at. And I feel like just being in one of those games themselves will raise your draft stock. But what do I know? I'm not a franchise owner. I'm just here for Thursday's Thoughts with Taylor Jones. You guys have a nice night.